Why do men and boys need their fathers? We need father figures in our lives to understand ourselves, to have a familiar point of contact in our world, so that we can navigate with greater clarity, greater confidence, greater courage, a greater openness of self. We struggle as boys as we're transitioning into manhood when we do not have appropriate figures in our lives to guide us, to be a voice of reason, to actually also challenge us, to bring the best of us forward. When we don't have those father figures in our lives, particularly that father figure that we look up to, that we deify, that we look to for everything, when we don't have that, we suffer and we struggle. But let me talk to that for a moment. There's also a pain to have this deified man in our lives that we look up to. Because let me tell you something about men, let me tell you something about human beings. We will fall from grace. We are not perfect. The wholeness of who we are entails the richness of who we are and the shadow of who we are, the pain of who we are. As boys growing up, we need to witness men in their greatness, and we also need to witness men who suffer, who stumble, who fall, but who get up again. We're not just talking about this king archetype. We're also talking about the shadow warrior archetype or the shadow king archetype. And as boys, we need to witness all of that. We need to understand what it means to be a whole man. And so most boys grow up not even having a version of man in their lives that is close to them, that they can connect with, that they can query with, that man can bring forward the best of that boy and the worst of that boy, and embrace both. Embrace the quote-unquote worst of that boy and the best of that boy, and help that boy seeing that he is not judged in all that he is, yet can he navigate his life? Can he navigate the terrain of growing up, of becoming a man with greater efficacy, with greater clarity, with a deepened sense of self? Can that young boy do that? Well, he won't be able to do that without guidance, without support, and without healthy challenge. Recently, I was on a vision quest, and I'm 38 years old, and a vision quest is something reserved for boys transitioning into manhood. Literally. A boy of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, maybe 16, transitioning into what does it mean to be a man in this world and in society. And the group of men that I was with, we were all in our either late 20s to 40s. And so this is an example, and a fairly accurate one, of boys not having an opportunity to expand on the truth of who they are. As a child growing up, I couldn't rely on my father. He wasn't available emotionally or physically. And I had to make up my own rules. I had to follow my own mind, my own heart even. But as a boy, we question everything. As children, we question everything that's real to us. And so it can be deeply challenging to trust ourselves. Having that external reflection, it gives us a point of reference, a navigation point, like a North Star if we're sailing the vast ocean. Now, as boys, if we don't have that, we'll engage in high-risk behavior. I know I did. I know many other boys that I was spending my time with during my being 10-year-old, 11 years old, 12 years old, early teens and late teens. I was spending time with people that were also young boys transitioning into manhood that were also very disconnected from their families. They didn't have someone to really go to that they could lean on for guidance, for support, and to actually be seen. And so we developed our own set of rules. We became mischievous. We became rebellious. We were engaged in high-risk behavior, stealing, violence, hurting other people, not considering others, not even considering ourselves. Now, I'm not blaming the lack of a father presence for our behavior. We're all responsible for our behaviors. What I am saying, though, is that the presence of the father is so important, and it's so negated that without it, boys become immature men. They'll either develop that Peter Pan syndrome. They'll develop that shut down aspect of being a man. They won't be able to connect to their emotions. They'll be hyper aggressive. They'll be very, very driven to the point where every other value in one's life suffers. Family, friendships, truth telling, one's health. I've gone through these stages myself. The choices I made as a young child shaped who I was as an adult. And until I checked those behaviors, until I checked that trauma, that unaddressed wounding from a child that I had to go through and really unpack and again re-mourn the loss of my father. Until I did that, I was unable to be a different version of myself. And so the importance of the father figure in one's life is to show a child that, one, as a man, availability is something that can be achieved, can be embodied. Two, that it's not about being a perfect man or only demonstrating to that boy growing up the greatness of man, but to also demonstrate the fall of man and how we get up. You see, many, many years ago, thousands and thousands of years ago, tribal cultures from around the world understood the importance of the transition of boyhood to manhood, that rite of passage of being connected to the mother's bosom, being connected to connection itself and nurturing and tribe, to then being alone and having to fend for oneself, but knowing that when that young boy came back from his vision quest, from his rite of passage, that he would be greeted by many men in that tribe and that community. And we lack that in today's world. We see that with soaring divorce rates. We see that with unavailable fathers. We see that with wounded adults, wounded men that are doing their best, attempted best, to navigate the complexities of fatherhood or parenthood and society. And this isn't about blaming, and this isn't about victimhood. This is about instilling the importance of why boys need their fathers and the responsibility that we have as adult men who have or carry an awareness around the importance of this. And it's not just an awareness, it's a responsibility that we have. Now, I don't have children at the moment. And this is something I think about deeply. I think about this often. What type of father will I be? My father taught me a lot. He taught me a little about how to be and a lot about how not to be. And in order for me to have gone through the pain around that, the resentment, the sense of betrayal, the anger that I had projected towards him, I had to feel a lot of the unfelt stuff. Men have to go through their own internal processes now and release the past in order to be not only great in the present, but able to deal with their shadow self in the present. We don't want, I mentioned this earlier, we don't want this deified version of a man. As a young boy, as children, we deify our parents, our primary caregivers. We put them up, we pedestalize them. And we do that in order to be attentive to what they're telling us and how also they're moving through the world. And we pay attention to all of this and we're registering this in our brain and in our bodies. Now, the important thing is that at some point we stop deifying them. Otherwise, we carry that wound into our adulthood and we're comparing everyone to our parents and no one's ever going to be good enough. So our relationships are going to suffer tremendously. Now, A healthy boy transitioning into healthy manhood sees and witnesses not only the greatness in his father, in his parents, and deifies him, but also sees that his father carries shadows. His father carries maybe pains, but he deals with them. He's aware of them. He's open to them. He doesn't claim to be perfection in perpetual motion. He claims to be a man that is consistently aware of who he is, and that's all of himself. Now, if a man is unavailable and not present in a child's life, how can a child witness that? And if a child witnesses too much of the shadow and none of the greatness, what idea does he then develop of what it means to be a man? He will mimic that which he initially valued the most, which is his father and his mother. And the complex ideas that we develop around this as adults from our childhood, it diminishes our sense of worth. We need fathers, healthy fathers more than ever, and it's not too late. It's not too late if you're 50, 60, 70 years old to cultivate that more whole sense of self, to be that beacon of truth and possibility for others, not only younger than you, but that look up to you, that look to you for wisdom and guidance. This is the importance of the father figure. This is the importance of growing into a more responsible society. One that doesn't harbor so much pain, so much old wounds. We have to stop being afraid from feeling. We have to stop being afraid of feeling our past and moving beyond it, changing the narrative and the relationship, the story and the meaning that we've laid upon our past experiences. Because if we keep harping on that, we will keep being stuck in and on that, and we will continue to bring those past memories and experiences and stories into the present. And all we're doing is bringing shame and blame and judgment and pain into the present, which is pushing people away and isolating ourselves. And what do we do when we feel isolated? We feel fucking horrible. We get more into fear and we numb. Alcohol, workaholism, drug abuse, numbing out and zoning out in front of the TV, hating on ourselves, treating people with disrespect, and trying to release that anger that is really towards ourselves and towards others onto the people that we love in the present moment. They don't deserve that, and neither do we. So if you are a father watching this, maybe this is an opportunity for a reset for you. If you are a young man watching this that harbors great pain or anger towards your father, maybe it's time to feel some of that stuff, to get some support and release that. If you are a woman watching this, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a wife, a partner, maybe it's for you to support that person with more non-judgment, with deeper compassion and empathy, whilst you set your own healthy boundaries, because that's very important for your own sense of well-being as well. Power and blessings to you. I'll see you soon.